And a very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101 on a Wednesday evening. Is it Wednesday? Yes, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Good evening to you, and welcome. Welcome to this evening's edition of Politics 101. Please share the link. Let everyone know that we're on. We're on. We continue our conversation this evening. Masa Day must done. Masa Day must done. Today is Labor Day. Today is Labor Day, Workers' Day, not Masa Day. Masa Day must done. That's our message today. So please share the link. Please share the link and let everybody know. Everybody know that we are on. We're on. It's Wednesday evening. Politics 101. Share the link. We are going to get started in a couple of minutes. So please group up, as we used to say in the old days, and be ready for us this evening. Masa Day must done. Masa Day must done. Masa Day must done.
Used to boast about our land, saying we have racial integration. We told the world that our country is an example of love, peace, and racial harmony. But all that's now a fake. The country club issue made us wide awake. But that's a drop of water, my friend, in an ocean of discrimination. So please, won't you tell country club? And what must you tell them? Masa Day, Masa. We want no racialism in our countries, no prejudice or color must divide in this land, must belong to everybody. So tell the Portuguese club to come on our island, to hell with Junction and Chinese Association. These lands only has room for us West Indians. We want no division. Masa Day, Masa. Country club is joke, there are many more. Our banks give us loans based on our color. You get certain lawyers to defend you in court. The color of your skin or prestige is your passport. Massa in hotel, drinking rum and whiskey. The poor man catching his tail, and if he thief to live, they throw him in jail. So please, won't you tell them massas? I want to hear you say, Masa Day, Masa. Amen. Too much nepotism going on in these islands. Carnival and Christmas, reminding all them Syrian, and they won't spend a penny to help ISO and Steel Band. Won't you tell the Ministry of Education, stop lining up our children in hot sun, giving flag to some Englishman or Canadian. I am making fun. Masa Day, Masa. Let's face the facts, brother, look around. Some youths have jobs, others have none. To get a job, poor girls have to sin. While in most stores and banks, you see one race and same skin. Rich men getting away with cockfight churches, gambling on Harvest Day. And police in your tail whole day, if you only play wacky and wavy. So tell the police that's discrimination. And what is my message?
Masa de Masa.
Amen. Mister, don't you call yourself no white man or no Syrian. You're not a Chinese, Englishman or no German. Everyone living in these lands are all West Indians. In all them big shot hotels like in Hilton, there is the price of drinks to keep out the black man. But we go still buy them folks and bring in the rum. We are making fun.
Masa de Masa.
Governments in the Caribbean must now put a stop to all of this sin. It is time to stop Masa. Everyone must be free to live and enjoy rights here. No more exploitation. Have respect for labor unions. Pay good wages and benefits. It's time that Masa should take his exit. So please, won't you tell the authorities? I want to hear you say, Smiley, must now put a stop to all of this sin. It is time to stop Masa. Everyone must be free to live and enjoy rights here. No more exploitation. Have respect for labor unions. Pay good wages and benefits. It's time that Masa should take his exit. So please, won't you tell the authorities? I want to hear you say, Smiley,
Masa de Masa.
amen. And tell newspaper no German, everyone living in these lands are all West Indians. In all them big shot hotels like in Hilton, there is the price of drinks to keep out the black man. But we go still buy them folks and bring in the rum. We are making fun.
Masa de Masa.
Governments in the Caribbean must now put a stop to all of this sin. It is time to stop Masa. Everyone must be free to live and enjoy rights here. No more exploitation. Have respect for labor unions. Pay good wages and benefits. It's time that Masa should take his exit. So please, won't you tell the authorities? I want to hear you say, Smiley,
Masa de Masa.
amen. And tell newspapers all over the Caribbean to printing comics like Handbrake and Tarzan because they degrading the dignity of the black man. And we in the Caribbean have got to know that we are colonial leaders must follow with revolutionary thinking is to really grow. Let us stay up, son.
Masa de Masa.
Yes, Masa Day was done. We not making any fun. Masa Day was done. Masa Day was done. The mighty chalked us there. Dr. Hollis, Liverpool. Dr. Hollis, Liverpool. The mighty chalked us. Stay up. Masa Day was done. They must pay the trade unions. Masa Day was done. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101 It's a Wednesday evening. We are continuing our conversation. It is today, the 1st of May. It's Labor Day, May Day, Workers' Day. It's a day that is set aside, has been set aside to honor workers, workers. Way back in the 1840s, Karl Marx said, "Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains." And today, that call, that exhortation, uh, that is so relevant in our Guyana as we observe another Labor Day. It is even more important for us today because we move into a new era. We are moving into a new era. Some would say we have moved into a new era, the era of the petro state. Labor becomes important again, as it has always been. It is labor that led the way to independence. The so-called labor riots of the 1930s struck the final blow for independence in our Caribbean. It was labor. It was the labor unions that led the way. The first union in our part of the world, 1919, the Guyana Labor Union, led by Hubert Nathaniel Critchlow. It was labor always leading the way. And today, when they're all coming to Guyana in search of El Dorado again, labor becomes important again. And we're asking the question, what are we doing to ensure that the price of labor, the value of labor, the labor power that we have, what are we doing to ensure that it gets the value? There are many ways of transferring our wealth into the hands of our people. And one of the first ways to do that is through their labor. Every day, our people get up and they go out and sell their labor. Public servants sell their labor to the government. Others sell their labor to the private sector. We go out every day and we sell our labor. And we expect that that labor should be properly compensated. It is our route to wealth. And if workers in Guyana are poor, it is because they have not been paid a living wage. A living wage. On this day, this Labor Day, we continue to call for a living wage for our workers. It was good to see workers marching through the streets of Georgetown today, signaling to the authorities that the working people have not given up. The working people are on the move. They're on the move. They're on the move. And so here in Politics 101, we say Masa Day must done. Masa Day must done. Pay our workers a living wage. You see, we talk today so that tomorrow we stop talking. You know, some of you make the criticism of us. Too much of talking. But we talk today so that tomorrow we will stop talking. Last evening, I shared with you some concerns of some of our supporters who took umbrage to the fact that I called the vice president Mr. Jack Deal. Of course, I'm a keen student of the folk, including folk language. And I know that there is a difference between the Mr. and Mr. But that aside, the fact that Many of you do not want us to even refer to them in polite ways. Reflects how much you have become alienated from them, how much you feel down-pressed by them, disrespected by them. And it is that you are expressing when you ask somebody like myself not to refer to them as Mr., not to refer to Jack Dio as Mr. Jack Dio. The PPP has pushed our people to the edge, and it continues to do so. And it continues to be in willful denial because it believes that our people do not have agency. They do not have human agency. There was once a time when the slave masters felt so, the Masas. They felt that the enslaved people had no agency, that they loved being enslaved, and they were to get a rude awakening. And today, the present Masas feel that they have Black people mostly, but working people also. But they feel that they have Black people mostly in their place, and that they are not going to push back. They are not going to push back. They boast that they will get a 2/3 majority at the next election, which means that they will win half of African votes. If you are thinking that way, you obviously must know that you have not earned African votes. And that if you're going to get half of the African population to vote for you, although you're bulldozing their homes, you're bulldozing their businesses, you're refusing to meet with their unions and to pay them a living wage, you're shooting down their fathers and their sons in their bed and in the bright daylight, you're spitting on their mothers, on their sisters, you're killing them left, right, and center, that you feel that although you are doing that, half of them will vote for you. You obviously must think that they're jackasses. Because you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing to them. And you're saying that despite what I'm doing to you, I know that you are going to vote for me. They're then saying that we are jackasses. We are jackasses. That's what they're saying. And in saying that we are jackasses, from a racial standpoint, they're saying that we are less than humans. We are less than humans. We've got to talk today so that tomorrow we stop talking. We talk today so that tomorrow we stop talking. And I'm telling you, one or two of the brothers said that I shouldn't even play what Jack Dio said. I play what Jack Dio said to rebut him. Don't play somebody said. I know sometimes our people say things that they don't necessarily mean, that I'm promoting Jack Dio. I'm promoting Jack Dio. I'm bringing Jack Dio here, and I'm using his own words to show our people where we stand with them and what they think about us. And so we talk today so that tomorrow we won't have to talk anymore. We talk today so that tomorrow we won't have to talk anymore. African people, opposition supporters, working people, you all have got to start taking a stand. You all have got to start taking a stand. Some of us, some of you have already taken a stand. Others are sitting on the fence. We've got to take a stand. At some point, we are human beings. If someone a month ago had said that students at US Ivy League universities were going to come onto the streets, leave their classrooms, and give solidarity to the Palestinians, we would have told them no. We would have said no, it wouldn't happen. Human beings act when the spirit moves in them. All that we can do is to open up spaces, open up the playing field, but people will make their decisions. The students in the United States of America at more than 30 Ivy League universities are taking a stand when we didn't think that they would. When we didn't think that they would. And I am confident that the people in Guyana, African people, opposition supporters, working people in general, will stand up and take a stand shortly. Shortly. We have reached the end, almost there, almost there. So Mr. Jagdio says, Mr. Jagdio, the Mr., he said that the PNC did nothing for Black people, that they pushed Black people into the public service, and pauperized them, to use the words of the goodly gentleman, that they put them in the public service to pauperize them. So being in the public service, according to Jack Dew, is synonymous with being a pauper. Synonymous with being a pauper. That is what Jack Dew is saying. Now let's examine that. Let's examine it. Let's examine it. First of all, let's hear him in his own words, so nobody will say that we are lying on the mister.
Of wealth in favor of other races. How is it that for 33 years of our independent Guyana, 58 years of independent Guyana, when you had the control over state power, you were running the government, how could you ensure that Afro-Guyanese grew? How could you not? Because they pauperize Afro-Guyanese. They pauperize Afro-Guyanese by making sure they were mainly in the public sector. If you look at 1990 and 1992, the average salary in the public sector was $25 US by pauperizing a large amount of Afro-Guyanese when they were in office. They didn't help much in the period in 2015 too.
Jack Dew. Yes. So you heard the man there. The PNC did nothing for Black people. They put them in the public service. They pauperized them. All right. So it's nonsense that the PNC did nothing for Black people. We're not even going to dignify that with any kind of response. But I'm going to say this. This man is sitting there and saying, how come when you had power, you did nothing for Afro-Guyanese? Had the government come out and say, we are doing this for Afro-Guyanese, the PPP would have slaughtered them politically. They would charge them with racism. And so the PNC obviously could not say we are doing this for Afro-Guyanese. But here is that man hypocritically sitting there and saying that why you didn't do for Afro-Guyanese. Why you didn't do for Afro-Guyanese. Had they done for Afro-Guyanese, they would have called them racist. But I'm going to take this conversation to another level. What he's doing there is that he's justifying what his government is doing for Indo-Guyanese. No, I know that the PPP is doing things for Indo-Guyanese. Let's don't fool ourselves. I hear sometimes PNC people make it out as though the PPP does nothing for Indian Guyanese. It's not true. The PPP does a lot for Indian Guyanese. It does a lot for the Indian Guyanese bourgeoisie, the Indian Guyanese rich. It does less for the Indian Guyanese poor, but it still does some things for Indian Guyanese, as Indian Guyanese. The government policy towards sugar workers is an Indian Guyanese policy because the vast majority of sugar workers are Indian Guyanese, and your policy towards sugar workers would benefit Indian Guyanese. So the government does, the PPP government does for Indian Guyanese. And what Jack Dio is saying is that why you cussing me for doing for Indian Guyanese? You had power and you didn't do for African Guyanese. Like I said, it is not true that the PNC didn't do for African Guyanese. The PNC did things for African Guyanese. They weren't bold, as Jack Dio to say, that we are doing this for African Guyanese. But they did things for African Guyanese. They just would never say it in that way. So Jack Dio knows that they did things for African Guyanese. What he's doing, he's saying, why you cussing me for doing for Indians? The problem, Jack Dio, Mr. Jack Dio, is that nobody, certainly not David Hines, is saying that you shouldn't do anything for Indian Guyanese. They voted for you. And you have to do something for them. What we are saying is, in the process of doing something for Indian Guyanese, do not discriminate against other groups. There are things that are particular to the Indian Guyanese community. As Jack Dio said earlier, unabashedly, he wants Indian Guyanese to get rich. So when our people come to us, we do things to get them rich. Nothing is wrong with that. But it's when the price for trying to get Indian Guyanese rich is to keep African Guyanese and Amerindians poor, that's where the problem is. So that narrative by Jack Dio, that the PNC coalition did nothing for Black people. He knows better. He knows that they did things for Black people. But he knows that they weren't bold enough to say we are doing this for Black people as Black people. He knows that. And that is what he's playing on. But he's also using that argument to justify the government, what it is doing for Indian Guyanese. And as I said, what the government is doing for Indian Guyanese is legitimate. Indian Guyanese voted for them. But in the process of doing for your constituency, you must not be seen to be discriminating against other constituencies. That is the problem we have in Guyana. And I'm saying, as I'm saying here tonight, the PPP does things for Indian Guyanese. Don't let people tell you nonsense. They do a lot for the Indian Guyanese rich. They turn a lot of not rich Indians into rich people. They give them contracts so that they can get rich. Don't walk around the place saying, oh, they don't do nothing for Indian Guyanese. Indian Guyanese are suffering, but that doesn't mean that the government is not doing anything for them. The Indian Guyanese poor is getting less than the Indian Guyanese rich. But the government is ensuring that the Indian Guyanese poor is treated better than the African poor and the Amerindian poor. That is the issue here. And that's what Jack Dio doesn't want us to talk about. And we have to change our narrative because we hear the narrative from the other side. And we must not be afraid to talk about Black people and their suffering, their particular suffering. The PPP and on the Indian Guyanese never let the coalition get away with closing down those estates and firing those workers, as they put it. The workers weren't fired. They said it's 7,000. Winston Jordan said it's 4,000. But they never let the government get away with that. Because they see it as discrimination against Indians. And they have corrected that since they got to power. They gave the sugar workers, on top of their severance, they gave them $250,000. They opened a training school on the quarantine to train sugar workers to transition into the new oil economy. They meet with GAU. Right now, the sugar workers at Rosal are on strike. I bet you bottom dollar. I bet you bottom dollar. In the next 3 or 4 days, their matter will be settled. They're saying that the government promised them 1 week pay. Once the crop is over. And sorry, the Gaisuko promised them 1 week pay. When the crop is over and they haven't paid them, and they're out there picketing in Rosal. And I bet my bottom dollar that within the week, their matter will be resolved. Teachers say that we have not had any collective bargaining. We go back to 2019, the government fighting them. They had to go on strike. When the court ruled, the government is appealing the court's decision. Different attitudes to different category of workers. So I'll just stop that nonsense. All governments push back against its citizens. But in societies like ours, the governments tend to be partial to one set of citizens, even as it is oppressing them. The way they treat GAU and the way they treat the PSU and the GTU shows very clearly that the African poor and the Indian poor are not treated with the same value system. And so our narrative, I am playing Jack the O's so that you all can hear his narrative. Those who work in the public service are paupers. He said that. The PNC put them in the public service to pauperize them. And what his government is doing? It is pauperizing them 100 times more. 100 times more. They're paupers. Understand language. Nomenclature is the big word we use in academia. Understand narrative. The PNC wanted to keep Black people poor. They ought to be stupid if that is the case. But of course, that's not the case. Why Jack Dio knows that they want to keep them poor? They put them in the public service. Of course, they were in the public service before the PNC came to power. It was the colonial order that drove black people into the public service. They weren't always there. But Jack Dio's central thesis is that the public service is a place where paupers work. And if that is your worldview, if that is how you think of the public servants, then the policies of your government will reflect the way you think. Treat them as paupers. You're in the public service because it's your fault and your party fault. They put you there. I have no responsibility to get you out of there. You are paupers. You are condemned to pauperism. That is what Jack Dio says there. So my brothers, I play Jack Dio, not to promote Jack Dio. I play Jack Dio so that I can expose Jack Dio. There's what you call the text, which is what he says, and the subtext, which is what I am giving you all here. Black people, public servants, are paupers. And if you believe that, and you believe that they are equal citizens, and you believe that the public service is essential to the running of the country, you will enact policies to depauperize the public service. But if you believe the people in the public service are not real human beings, and that the public service is a humbug, then you implement policies to keep them just where they are. Keep them just where they are. Note what I am saying here tonight. This is what the PPP thinks of you. So when I hear some young black people chatting nonsense, some of them innocently, development and development. You all come to Politics 101 and understand what you all are signing up for. Every African who joins the PPP or go on the PPP bandwagon, responding to the nonsense, they are enemies of African people. They are allowing themselves to be used as props to beat up African people. Because what Jack Dio is saying is that, look, they get sense. They come out of the public service and they came over to us. The objective of the outreach to the African community is not to depauperize them, but to bring them to join the PPP. Jack Dio said that. I played it here. I am glad Jack Dio spoke out. I'm glad. And I'm glad he went on this subject. Because I wanted him to give his real view on this subject. Let's hear a little bit more about what this chap is saying.
So you had 23 years of control over the executive and 36 years of control over the parliament, basically, because from 2012 to 2015, they had a one-seat majority. 36 years of our 58 years, they had control over the parliament. How did they use this in favor of Afro-Guyanese? The entire country, including the lives of many Afro-Guyanese, was negative all the time. So it is, I'm going to say, it's not that, it's the scholarships, it's the jobs, it's the land that were allocated. Just look at the last 4 years and you will see it's not one else. They have to be for me. But they're not really, because they want to keep you in that state. And that is what they capitalize on. People like Burke and the bench cup, they make money, I believe, on the side. Now, if people feel there is no cause to fight for, why would they give them any money, donations? And Burke is a criminal. He extorts everyone. I think he's worried more about the donations he will not get anymore in these places. So that's why you see such kinds of reaction. And it is something, I don't have enough time to explore it, and it is something we need to talk a bit more about and put these same people under scrutiny because they were in office. They, Heinz, he now suddenly has all of these things and suggestions. But when they had the cushy jobs in the 5 years, you think they cared about any Afro-Guyanese getting land? You think they cared about anything else? They were looking after themselves. You think Nigel Hughes cared anything? Cathy Hughes was busy getting contract in her ministry for herself, for her own.
So, he give me a little call. Heinz all of a sudden has all these suggestions. But where were those suggestions from Heinz under the coalition? They didn't care about black people, Heinz and them. Nigel Hughes didn't care about black people. That's the message. So, when Heinz licking down and kicking up, all that Heinz and them can do is protest and the victimhood and so on. They have no real suggestions to make. All they want to do is the government this and the government that. All they want to do is the government this and the government that.
Office. They, Heinz, he now suddenly has all of these things and suggestions. But when they had the cushy jobs in the 5 years, you think they cared about any Afro-Guyanese getting land? You think they cared about...
So you all heard for yourself. First of all, he said I had cushy job under the coalition, and he has repeated that over and over again. At some point, he and I will have to talk about this cushy job that I had. But anyhow, so all of a sudden Heinz has all these suggestions. You see, when Heinz licking down and protesting and so on, they say, these people have no suggestions, they have no policy. They all they want to do is to tear down. But now we putting forward policies, as he called them, suggestions, right? He gave him a little break there. We are putting forward suggestions, and it's the wrong thing we're doing. We should not put forward suggestions about what to do in our country because we didn't put forward these suggestions when the coalition was in power. Well, first of all, I'm very glad you realize that I am putting forward proposals and suggestions in addition to protest. I'm glad it come from him. Struggle is multifaceted. We walk on several planks at the same time. We protest, we expose, but we also put proposals on the table. And we don't put proposals on the table just for the sake of putting proposals on the table. As you know, our big proposal is the cash grants. The cash transfer, sorry, not cash grants. And we're saying take 10% of the oil revenues each year, calculate it. If you get 300 million US dollars. If you get 600 million US dollars a year, take 10% of that, that is 60 million US dollars. Divide that among the 220 households and give each of them that. And we don't want the president to walk around the place and sharing it out. We want you to take a bill to Parliament. Call it the Clive Thomas bill. Call it the Clive Thomas bill. Take a Clive Thomas bill to Parliament. Ask the Parliament to debate this policy proposal to take 10% of the oil revenue each year and to give it to each household. And you can put conditions to it. You can say each family that gets it must commit to sending their children to school every day. Each family must take their children to clinic. It is called conditional cash transfer. So that you are putting revenue in people's hands, poor people for the most part, because the majority of people are poor. Some of the rich people may not have need for that cash transfer. You can get it from them back in taxes. They can donate it to some organization, some charity. But poor people will welcome that money. There's always the bottom house to do. There is always the roof to do. There is always the small business to expand. There is always the vehicle that you can invest in so that your children, you can now drive your children to school rather than pay a lot of money on travel. There's always something to do. And you can make it conditional. Because wherever that policy has been tried and they've made school attendance conditional, school attendance increase by at least 30 to 40%. In Guyana, what is our dropout rate? We have a high dropout rate in school. So you're tying the cash transfer to school attendance. So you're not giving away handouts. You're giving people their own money to do what they feel like doing with it. But you're also tying it to increase school attendance and increase clinic attendance so that the health of our children will be improved. That lady who has to keep her child out of school because that child has to distribute newspapers and is either going to school late or don't go to school, when she gets that cash transfer, she can now take her child off the street. And she can employ adults to do what that child is doing and improve our newspaper or newspaper circulation business, or newspaper vending business, sorry. But our child will now be in school, not distributing papers. Because that revenue that the child was bringing in from distributing newspapers at 9, 10 o'clock during the day, rather than being in school, she now has the cash transfer. So, Mr. Jagdio, Mr., you the Mr. Yes, I am about proposals and policy. I am about that. And whether you like it or not, we are going to continue to do that. First of all, we have the capacity. to come up with policies and proposals. And you can take it. If you so love black people, if you so love poor people, take it and run with it. You don't have to wait until we get into office. It can be done now. You say we want to keep black people poor. Well, Heinz is saying tonight, I want black people to get rich. And one of the ways they can get rich is to share 10% of that blasted money that you're all taking it and giving it to your friends and your cohorts in contract. Give poor people, black people, brown people, give them some contract with that cash transfer. That's their contract. That's their contract. I'm glad you realize that we got proposal on the table. I'm glad that we got proposal on the table. Take the control out of the control of our oil, out of the grip of you and your government. Set up a national oil company. Set up a national oil company. That national oil company can bid for blocks. They can bid for oil blocks. The national oil company become a business, not controlled by the government. The oil industry should not be controlled by Jack Dio. Set up a national oil company to look after the interests, the national interests of our oil and gas. I heard the talk about National Petroleum Commission. We're saying a national oil company, a business, a government business. And while we were on the business of oil, he said that Nigel Hughes talking about no African getting oil blocks, and that they give 2 oil blocks to 2 African groups, 2 African companies. And Nigel Hughes is not talking about that. Well, first of all, I have news to him. The fact that you all gave oil blocks to 2 African companies is because of Nigel Hughes. If Nigel Hughes did not expose it to the world, you all would have continued. So you all give 2, the next go wrong. I want you all to give 10 times 2. We're not satisfied with 2. 2 out of 20, 2 out of 40. That is not equitable. So first of all, is we make you do it. Is Nigel Hughes make you do it? That's 1. 2, it's a token. Yes, we welcome it, but it's a token. We need more. If you love black people and you want them to get rich, give them more. Give them more oil blocks. You see, you give the 2 oil blocks because you want to use them as talking points. And you want to get the Africans that you give the oil blocks to kiss your ring. That's what you're about. If they want to kiss your ring, that's their personal business. But we are saying that our people must not have to kiss anybody's ring to get their fair share in this country. That's what you're saying, Jack Dio. That's what we're saying. You talk about suggestions, you say, Heinz now have all these suggestions. Yes, I'm glad you realize that we got suggestions. We got policies. I want to remind you that the cash transfer proposal was made in 2018 August. 2 years before the coalition government was hounded from power. So, yes, Jack Dio, you're lying when you say Hines and them only making the proposal now. You're a damn liar. The proposal was made when the coalition was in office. So you're saying we only making proposal now. Hines only making proposal now. During the coalition time, he didn't make any proposal. They're liars, but they have a motive. They're building up a narrative. It's a narrative. It's an anti-Black narrative. It's a new narrative in which they're saying the condition that Black people are in, they can no longer deny that Black people are badly off. But the new narrative is that they're badly off because of choices they make at the personal, the family, and the community level, and choices made by their party. That's the narrative. And we are saying they're where they are because of structural developments in our society that having been chased off their lands, not given license to enter commerce, they then, as human beings are wont to do, they move to where there were opportunities. The movement to the public service was not the PNC doing. That was long before the PNC. The movement for the public service was as a result of discriminatory practices on the part of the colonial government. And guess what, Mr. Jagdeo? Mr. Jagdeo, you have done nothing to turn back those colonial policies. In fact, you are saying that those colonial policies are not really the fault of the colonials, it's the fault of Black people themselves. Rafi Dev likes to quote a lady who come and study Guyana, and she said something to the effect that Black people work to live and Indian people live to work. Black people work to live and Indian people love to work. My friend Ravi likes that. He likes that. Because, you know, the thesis is that Black people work to live. So when they got these lands, they plan food to eat. They didn't plan food to export. Indian people didn't plan food to eat, they planned food to export. So they're rich today. What that lady and Rafi Dev are not saying is that Black people were not given license by the colonial government to engage in business. And so their drift into the public service was a matter of survival. They didn't choose that. Their first choice was their village economy. That is why they bought the land. And they set up the village and they give house lots at the front and farmlands at the back. And you know what? Physically, they turned the wild coast into a livable space. Walter Rodney talked about the tens of thousands of shovels of dirt that was dug. The canals, the seawall. They irrigate the place. They keep the sea out. And then when they got into the public service, they made the government work. They went into the police force to defend the community while it sleep at nights, to protect the community while it sleep at nights. They went into the army to defend the nation. Those who were making their money because they got license and opportunities to do that. It is the African police who got to protect you all. And it's the African soldier who has to protect the borders. So they turned the wild coast, they tamed it with the physical labor without any pay for 400 years. And then after that, they were pushed into the public service. They created government. They created a government service. They made it work. They defended the nation. They protected the nation. They become nurses. They deliver your babies. They heal you when you're wounded. They became teachers. They taught you and your children. And yet, when they ask for their grandmother's back pay, you tell them, oh, you got to get back pay for indentureship too. I am saying all of these things to you all Black people to strengthen you all. Not to believe the narrative that is peddled there, that there is another narrative. Your fight is not against your Indian brother and sister. Whatever your Indian brother and sister is getting from this government, I am certain they deserve it. And the fight is not to stop the government from giving Indians. The fight is to get the government to give as much to Africans and Amerindians. I'm sure Amerindians don't want me to speak for them, but I have to put in that fact. That it is not, nobody's saying the government shouldn't give to Indian people. But you must give equally to the other ethnic groups in the society. And if you feel that Black people are working in a pauperized sector, then implement policies to encourage them to go into other sectors where they can get rich. Give them lorries. Y'all call them Cantano. And give them license to engage in the sand business and the brick business. You love them? You love them? All right. Heinz coming up. I'll give you another proposal, Jagdio. Going to his Black community and run something, as the Trinidadians would say, run something. And give 10 lorries, make it easy then for 10 people in each Black community to be able to invest in a canter or two, and then give them license to engage in the quarry business. 10 per Black communities, Jagdio. You love Black people, David Hines helping you to show your love for them. They have to qualify, of course. But make it easy for 10 people from each Black community to have access to lorry and canter, whatever it is they need, and then give them the license for the quarrying business. You love Black people, and you want suggestion as to how Black people should get rich. the PNC want to pauperize black people. The PNC can speak for itself. The PNC made a lot of mistakes. The PNC made a lot of mistakes with black people. But I don't think that the PNC don't want black people to get rich. But it serves Jack Dio purpose to say that. Because he then wants the PNC to say, I did this to black people. I did do that for black people. All them housing schemes for black. And then they're going to say, you see, the same thing we said, they were discriminating against Indians. And then if the PNC remains silent and don't say anything, then he will say, well, it's not we fault. We doing for Indians because they vote for we, and we in government, and we got to help them. They try to ram you in. These people are in the business of changing the narrative of Guyana to justify the oppression and discrimination of Africans, of other minority ethnic groups such as Amerindians, and of the working poor. Each of those groups, the working poor, the Amerindians, the Africans, each of them experience the oppression differently because they come out of different histories. And sometimes there's an intersection of the oppression of Africans, of poor people of all races, of Amerindians. There's an intersection. There's some things that they experience collectively. But because of where they're located in the economy, when you deny teachers a living wage, when you refuse to meet with their union, when you appeal the court's decision, and what means you're beating up on teachers, and 75% and more of the teachers are African, the beating up is going to have a more devastating effect in the black community than it will have in the Indian community and the Amerindian. They're Indian teachers. Their Amerindian teachers is going to affect them at the personal level, at the individual level, because they're not carrying home the wages to their family. So at the individual level, Indian teachers are affected. Amerindian teachers are affected. Portuguese teachers are affected. At the individual level. But when 75% and more of the teachers are African, and you don't give them a living wage, it has an effect on the community, the African community. It has the individual effect, just like the individual Amerindian teacher, the individual East Indian teacher. But because so many Africans are in the teaching profession, the effect is not just individual, it's community and it's race. It has an effect on the group as a community, as a race. And that is what I mean when I say the things. If you assault sugar, it will have an effect on individual African sugar workers. And they are African sugar workers. They are a minority. And so individually, if you assault the sugar, it will have an effect on them. But because the majority, more than 75% of sugar workers are Indians, when you assault sugar, it will have a devastating effect on the Indian community. Comrades, brothers and sisters, this is real talk. This is what we are into. And we want to empower you. so that you understand why you're fighting, what you're fighting for. Because we fight today so that tomorrow we fight no more. And tomorrow will come. Maybe stormy tonight. Stormy tonight. But joy cometh in the morning. Joy cometh not by sitting and waiting for the morning to come, but by getting up and fighting. The fight will take root in different ways, in different places. When the brothers in Brooklyn decide that they are going to rebuke those black people in Brooklyn who behaved in an insensitive way by inviting into their midst or allowing themselves to be used as pawns for a man who presides over a government that is denying wages and salaries to their own people. Their people, meaning the people in Brooklyn, to their people in Guyana. They're spitting on their women. They're bulldozing their homes. They're licking down their businesses on the seawall. And you are using your business to accommodate a man who has no intentions to do good by your people at home. You ought to be rebuked. And it is not for David Hines to tell people how they must rebuke. And if the brothers and sisters in Brooklyn decide the way to rebuke is to ask people not to buy from those businesses until they apologize, that is their choice, and it must be respected. Some of the businesses, I understand, have apologized. Bingo. They've learned their lessons. Sometimes in life you have to make some tough decisions. That is why I think our young brother, Jermaine Figueroa, who I love, I met him a couple of times, a good young man, but sometimes you have to understand there's some issues you don't need to touch. Let other people touch it. People who are more capable of understanding the dynamics of what they're dealing with, let them touch it. That letter to the newspaper by Comrade Jermaine was uncalled for. That letter is being used by the oppressor. Brother Jermaine, I love you. I love you. But learn your lesson, my brother. Don't get into certain fight unless you really understand what the fight is about. That fight in Brooklyn is not about boycotting businesses. That's not what the fight is about. The fight in Brooklyn is about our people, black people, allowing themselves to be used as whips to whip their own people. That's what the fight is, Jermaine. The boycott thing is not the issue. The boycott thing is a consequence of the issue, not the cause of the issue, not the essence of the issue. The cause and the essence of the issue is about this wicked policy of the PPP to go into black communities and to raid us. Because you see, they learn from the slave era. They learn that you can go into communities and raid people. That's why I call them slave catchers and slave raiders. That's what they're doing. They're not about recruiting black people to their philosophy. It's about raiding the black community. It's about catching Slaves in the black community, quote unquote slaves, because we are never slaves. We were never slaves. That is what that man is about. That's what he went into Brooklyn to do. And you're all going to see your pictures in party ads. Because you see, we have them rocking back in Geneva, from Geneva to wherever. They're now on the back foot. And they want to go into the black community to take out pictures with you all and to send it to the International Decade of the People of African Descent panel and say, Nigel Hughes was here, Olive Sampson was here, Darren Reid was here, and they were telling you we discriminated against black people. Look, we went into Brooklyn. Look how they love us. Black people, know thyself. We talk today so that we don't have to talk tomorrow. We rebuke our errant sisters and brothers in Brooklyn so that we don't have to rebuke them tomorrow. We rebuke them today so that they don't repeat. Some of them innocently, some of them not so innocently. It was always the view of the other that black people are malleable, that we can always be bought, that they've messed with our minds during slavery, and that they're moving in to take advantage of that. That is why they don't want people like myself to mess with your minds. Because what we are trying to do is to turn back that mental slavery, to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. They want us to be kept in mental enslavement. And those of us who are trying to walk us away from that path of mental enslavement, they call us racists. I am prepared to take that call. I'm fighting that fight today so that I don't have to fight it tomorrow. It was Frederick Douglass who told us that as an enslaved boy, one day the master approached him to beat him. And as he raised his hands with a whip to lash Frederick Douglass retaliated. As we say, square up. And the master's whip was left suspended in mid-air because he never expected a so-called slave to fight back. He was left paralyzed. And thus was born the thesis. It is not always the use of force or the use of protest. Sometimes the threat of force and the threat of the use of protest is enough to do the job. People in the black community must understand they have a right to join whichever party they want to join. They have a right to invite any party into their community, and any party got the right to go into the community. But black people must understand that if you, in pursuit of some individualistic ambition, decide that you are going to invite the slave raider and the slave catcher into the community, that there will be consequences. Black people must begin to understand that. We got to move the struggle. And I am a person who is very careful. Sometimes I frustrate some of you because I'm very careful about how we move this struggle. And that is born out of experience. So I'm sometimes very careful about what we say and how we say, always keeping our eyes on the prize. but never walking into the trap of the enemy. I know I frustrate some of y'all, but I'm saying tonight, and I want you all to hear me clearly, that black people must understand that if you collude with the slave raider and the slave catcher, there will be consequences. And that's what the brothers are doing in Brooklyn. If Ali comes into any black community to campaign and black people go out to listen to him, that's fair game. If Ali comes into the community to lay out the PPP's policy and black people choose to listen to him, that's fair game. No problem there. But if he comes in the community as a slave raider and a slave catcher, then, and people, first of all, he should not be welcomed. You can't stop him from physically be there, but he must be made to feel unwelcome. Can't stop him from going. As a little boy, when you see people behave, see them big people. When there's a mister who misbehaving in the thing and they pass them on the road, they must spit too. They turn their face for the next side too. And they must sing Panam. He is being rebuked by his community, made to feel unwelcome. And if Ali is going into our community to raid and to catch slaves, he must be made to feel unwelcome. Can't stop him from going physically, you can't. But he must be made to feel unwelcome. I heard a lady saying, we don't want no segregation, we want to live alone. No, tell him, pay the damn teachers their money. That's what you all should be in his face telling him. Be in his face telling him, give contracts to black people. Be in his face telling him, don't lick down black people business for the C1. We don't want no segregation. That's nonsense. What kind of fool is you? Black people must know, after Brooklyn, realize that if you move against the interests, the collective interests of the community, there will be consequences. And not even Jack Dio. And Ali should be able to save you. When black people in Brooklyn decide they're not buying your party, they're not buying your cook-up, they're not buying your chow mein, let them come and save you. They get time to save you. We fight today in a certain way so that we don't have to fight tomorrow. So, Jack Dio, I got your number. You are not going to define for black people what we should be. One of the poetic voices of our Caribbean said, we are what we are. And that's the way it's going to be. You can't educate if you know equal opportunity. Talk about my freedom, my people's freedom. That's what we're talking about. That's what Brother Bob says. Words of wisdom. You are not going to define for black people who we are. So you think that we are paupers because we are in the public service. And the public service is a pauper's ring, is a pauper's field. And so your policy towards the public servants is to keep the status quo, the pauperized status quo. I got you. The black people aren't paupers. Even if some of them decide to come and kiss your ring and say they're paupers, as a collective, we're not paupers. And so long as I have strength in my body, I'm going to talk back to you. I'm talking to my people, but in the process, I'm talking back to you. talking back to you. And you all black people, know thyself. Know thyself. As I said, you can belong to whatever party you want to belong. But don't tell me the PNC didn't do this for you. And that's a reason to go and kiss Jack the O-ring. The PNC didn't do for you. They got other parties in the opposition that are prepared to do what the PNC don't want to do or can do. I hold my party, the Working People's Alliance. At this juncture in our history, we have decided that black people's back are against the wall and we are going to defend them as black people. We are a multiracial party in the sense that we believe in a multiracial solution. We believe that the ethnic groups should move together, all things being equal. We believe in a national government of all political parties representing all ethnic groups. We believe that the oil wealth should be distributed to all families regardless of race. We are a multi-ethnic party in terms of our outlook, our worldview, our politics. But we recognize that African people are being singled out for discrimination, disproportionate discrimination. And we have decided that we will use our party as a barricade between the oppressor, the discriminator, and the black community. And we are not talking water in our mouth. We are prepared to take the blows that come with that. Because we know who we are. And so, if you feel the PNC playing games with black people business as black people business, you all don't have to run and kiss Jack the O-ring. He's not going to do that for you. He doesn't have any interest in empowering black people, the empowerment of black people. According to the Jack the O thesis, would be beneficial to the PNC and other opposition groups, not to the PPP. You give 2 oil blocks, we want 20 the next time. If you think we're going to tell them, lady, don't take the oil blocks, take them because you deserve them, so long as you have what it takes to get them, we welcome it. But don't go and kiss Jack the O-ring. One, kiss our ring because it's we who make you get it. If you want to kiss anything, kiss the ring of the people who are in the trenches every day, every night like the night, fighting for you to get the oil block. And human beings, once we smell freedom, we always want more. We should always want more. So black folk, you all got to lead this thing. Our Indian comrades are going to be singled out in the Indian communities for special attention by the PPP, and they don't eat nice. They just eat like curry barbed wire whenever an Indian cross over to an opposition party. They don't eat nice in those communities. So we've got to take the front row of this struggle because we got some Indian and Amerindian comrades on our side, but they must not be called upon to take the front line of the battlefield. Black people have to be on the front line of the battlefield. And in order to be on the front line of the battlefield, you all have to understand where we are, what is being done to us, and how we're going to make our way out of it. We fight in a certain way today so that tomorrow we don't have to fight like that anymore. So we are serving notice. Black people who cooperate with the slave raiders and the slave catchers, there'll be consequences. The consequences. We can't continue in the community to behave as though all is well. You want to join the PPP out of your ideological conviction? There will be no consequence, and there should be no consequences for that. Ali and Jack, do you want to come in the Black community and to sell their policies? They should be able to do so. But don't come in my community to flip roti, because that is not trying to sell your policies to me. That is a photo op. So we don't want you to come and clap roti in the Black community. We want you to come with policies. As I said, create a policy so we can have 5 or 10 African in each Black community to get into the lucrative quarrying business. You love us? Show us that you're not a part-time lover. You're not a one-day lover going into Brooklyn or Buxton or wherever. You're a lover for all the time. And I rather suspect that you don't want to be a full-time lover of Black people. I rather suspect, but since you say that you love us, and since you say David Hines now coming up with all these suggestions, I put in more suggestions. Every day I'm going to give you a new suggestion, Barrett. I love you all. And the love comes from a deep place. A place of identity. Because I identify with Africans, I identify with the poor. Identify with those who stand up against oppression, regardless of your race or your class. It's a revolutionary love that says that when your belly ought you, my belly ought me too. When you cry, I cry with you. Because when you're ready to wipe your tears and look the oppressor in the eye and go for the jugular, I will be there with you. Because I will not still my voice. I have too much to claim. This is Martin Carter. I will not still my voice. I have too much to claim. So if you see me marching in your ranks, know that I look for fire. Know that I do not sleep to dream, but I dream to change the world. Because I've learned from books, dear friends, of men who lived in a room without any light hungering. Men who could not die since death was far too poor. So if you see me looking at your hands, or listening when you speak, or marching in your ranks, know that I do not sleep to dream, but I dream to change the world, always, always for the better. I see you all tomorrow night.